speech from the throne, which outlines the PLP government's plan for the coming parliamentary year. Mr. Speaker, as Catherine de Vere said, she was the Countess of Warwick. She said, like tiny seeds with potent power to push through tough ground and become mighty trees, we hold innate reserves of unimaginable strength. We are resilient, but for it to work, for Bermuda to go on and do great things during these challenging times, there must be a plan. The same applies to Bermuda and her people. And we know that in the middle of economic and social difficulties, we will see and grasp real opportunities as they arise. There must always be a vision. There must always be a well-documented plan. And there must always be economic support. Without these key elements, there is no future for Bermuda and our people. The PLP has not delivered. The global economy. According to the OECD Economic Outlook Interim Report for September 2022, the world economy is paying a high price for Russia's unprovoked, unjustifiable, and illegal war of aggression against Ukraine. With the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic still lingering, the war is dragging down growth and putting additional upward pressure on prices for food and energy. Global GDP stagnated in the second quarter of 2022, and output declined in the G20 countries' economies. High inflation is persisting for longer than expected, and in many economies, inflation in the first half of 2022 was at its highest point since the 1980s. With the recent indicators taking a turn for the worst, the global economic outlook has darkened. Despite a boost in activity, and as COVID-19 infections drop worldwide, global growth is projected to remain subdued for the second half of 2022, before slowing further in 2023 to an annual growth of just 2.2%. Domestic economy. Mr. Speaker, the biggest and most challenging issue facing Bermuda today is inflation. Moreover, the escalating cost of living, which is around 9 to 10%, is the highest it has been in 20 years. Recently, the Federal Reserve increased the U.S. base rate by 75 basis points, with the hope of arresting inflation and decreasing the cost of living. It is their hope at best. While this rate continues only works positively for the few who have savings or little or no debt. Most families already have stretched budgets and will face higher mortgages and credit card payments. It also means that many business owners will be faced with making tough decisions to keep their businesses open and afloat. For those wishing to purchase a home, it will become more out of reach for them than ever before, as the cost of financing continues to escalate with no end in sight. As long as we have the Ukrainian war, increased energy bills, the disruption of the supply chain, and the remnants of COVID-19 challenges, and the cost of living increases, we will have to brace ourselves for further impact. This could also mean that Bermuda may be faced with weak growth, low productivity, underinvestment, and a widening gap in inequality. Mr. Speaker, the continued increases in interest rates will drive our workers into more debt and other financial hardships, especially if they have mortgages and credit card debt. These same workers will continue to find themselves in increasing difficulties when paying their bills this year. To remedy this situation, local banks must do their best to help people in financial stress because of international influences which are beyond their control. This could take the form of payment deferrals, interest-only offerings, and the reduction in fees and charges. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance must lay out a plan to help people, especially if local bank interest rates continue its current path between 6.25% and 6.75% and rising. Bermuda needs a plan to help homeowners who are at the end of the line financially. People are making difficult choices. They must choose between food, health care, and electricity, as their income is not stretching far enough to cover their living expenses. The One Bermuda Alliance believes that the priority of the PLP government should be to grow and strengthen the economy and to continue to help ease the cost of living for families. Mr. Speaker, considering this, Bermuda is in a tailspin, and this year's speech from the throne has given the people truly little hope or aspiration for a brighter future. We were all expecting a clear indication from the throne speech that Bermuda and our people are well on the way to economic recovery. Instead, we received a disheartening economic speech which lacks substance and with no recovery plan to shed light on a progressive path forward. Premier Burt's 2022 throne speech lacks new and innovative direction. It was more the same, Premier Burt at his best, providing a lot of talk with truly little action. Mr. Speaker, Bermuda must grow her economic pie, and handouts will not help the process. The cannibalization of the farming, fishing, and courier package industries will not help grow our economy. In fact, nothing in this year's throne speaks to how the Burke government is going to grow our economy. There is no real stimulus package in sight. What does the PLP government's thriving economy look like? And how will it be achieved? Where are the real solutions for reducing the cost of living? Where is the PLP's roadmap to arrest the crippling escalation of our energy bills, healthcare costs, and our food costs? Bermuda needs a creative and workable economic recovery plan which does more than address infrastructure development and tax concessions. Given the economic malaise faced by the global community and Bermuda, this government must make economic diversification a real priority beyond the digital and e-commerce industries. This Progressive Labour Party government should also drive economic growth to improve living standards and fund sustainable investment in public services. This should be supported by a reasonable approach to the public finances and reducing debt while also reviewing the adequacy of our tax structure. Bermuda taxation system. In fact, the PLP's 2023 speech proposed that the Tax Reform Commission of 2018 update and its recommendations in light of the new economic realities created by the pandemic. Our question to this government is, why has this not been delivered? When does the government intend to re-embody the Tax Reform Commission? Have they refreshed themselves with the 2018 report? And what has been done thus far to implement any of the recommendations? We submit that there are recommendations found in the report which are fair, equitable, and do not place undue burden on the lower paid workers of this country, and do much to effectively broaden the tax base without stifling the economy. However, just like the SAGE report and the Fiscal Responsibility Panel report and other similar reports, the administration has not put into practice meaningful or substantive recommendations made by these commissions. Finally, Bermuda national debt currently stands at $3.5 billion. Where is the Progressive Labor Party's debt reduction and debt management plan? The Progressive Labor Party government does not have any regard or concern about the trajectory of Bermuda's debt. Instead, they are passing the burden of debt on to our children and grandchildren, and they are not having it. Considering this, our young people are voting by leaving the island. Tourism. Mr. Speaker, Bermuda desperately needs to revitalize its lagging tourism industry and products. Further, the Bermuda Tourism Authority must be given the economic and human capital to get on with its job with minimal interference from the government and politicians. Mr. Speaker, speaking of human capital, if the Bermuda Tourism Authority is going to revitalize tourism, it must start at the top of the organization. There is no clarity as to where things stand with the appointment of the Chief Executive Officer. Considering this tenuous situation, the acting Chief Executive Officer and the Chief Operating Officer are doing the best that they can with the hands that they have been dealt, given that the organization has been operating at a less than optimal standard for over 2 years. Mr. Speaker, a lot of confidence has been placed on the opening of Fairmont Southampton Hotel. Many people see it as a rebirth of Bermuda's tourism industry, even though the status of the development contract has yet to be confirmed. Mr. Speaker, despite this, the BTA is not waiting for the opening of the hotel. They are reviewing and refining tourism's strategic recovery plan. We understand that Bermuda is nowhere near the top of mind for international tourists. In fact, Bermuda is near the bottom of the list. We, as a tourism destination, have lost our competitive advantage, and our sales team has not focused on the US East Coast, Canada, UK, and Western Europe. In fact, in recent years, we have lost market share in most areas. Despite our repeated efforts and public outcry, the Progressive Labor Party government's insistence on the travel authorization form has caused a deep scar on our reputation as a tourism destination. It appears that under the Progressive Labor Party government, its tourism team became comfortable with focusing on the traditional US East Coast market, while our competitors to the south took a more aggressive marketing approach. Today, they enjoy more positive results which reflect their marketing approach. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to service levels and standards, we take the view that Bermuda should reintroduce or revisit its tourism appreciation and training programs, as this has been proven to be very successful in the past. On the matter of new inward tourism investment, except for the $365 million renovation of the Southampton Princess, or Fairmont Southampton, the pipeline for future investment prospects is dry. Consequently, Bermuda's 600 Airbnb accommodations have played a vital role in supporting Bermuda's tourism industry, and they now have begun to enjoy the green shoots of success. Mr. Speaker, Bermuda must do a better job of managing Bermuda's narrative. We must not allow overseas agencies and jurisdictions to define our message for us. In addition, the BTA and the Department of Tourism should implement a local campaign to encourage both Bermudians and guest workers to become sales ambassadors for Bermuda's tourism industry when on holiday or when traveling on business. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to inward tourism investments, we believe that the government does not need greater discretion in granting relief to developers and investors in attractions, restaurants, and hotels. Instead, we believe that the Tourism Investment Act is currently adequate as is, as it provides transparency and full oversight by our Parliament. The Premier indicated that Bermuda is not competitive when it comes to attracting hotel investment. The One Bermuda Alliance asserts that this challenge lies squarely at the feet of the Progressive Labour Party government, who has been in power for 20 years of the past 25 years. During the 5-year period when the One Bermuda Alliance ran the government, we were extraordinarily successful in attracting tourism investment capital. The St. Regis Hotel, the Lauren, the Azor hotels are all a testament to our success. Mr. Speaker, let's be clear. The Progressive Labour government should not and must not compromise the BTA's mandate and authority. As you will recall, a former PLP tourism minister said that he was going to rip the engine out of the BTA, and that he did. As mentioned, other than the promised refurbishment of the Fairmont Southampton, the Progressive Labour Party has made no recent substantive contributions to Bermuda's tourism product. In contrast, the One Bermuda Alliance government set the pace in attracting new investors to the island. Without question, these initiatives we planted are still keeping Bermuda's economy afloat today. The One Bermuda Alliance placed tourism in the hands of tourism professionals with the creation of the Bermuda Tourism Authority. As a result, the country saw almost immediate benefits, such as the 5-star St. Regis Hotel, which now graces the town of St. George's. The seed was planted and germinated because of One Bermuda Alliance's administration and management. The 5-star Lauren Hotel. This boutique hotel was developed and birthed under the auspices of the One Bermuda Alliance. The new Azura Hotel complex, which is currently in the last stages of completion on the South Shore Road in Warwick. The new L.F. Wade Airport, which was attributed to One Bermuda Alliance and the Honorable E.T. Bob Bridges and his cabinet colleagues. Again, this world-class acclaimed airport provided great needed boost to employment, our economy, and our tourism infrastructure and product. And finally, Bermuda's America's Cup in 2017, which is widely thought as one of the greatest sporting events hosted in Bermuda, as it brought much needed employment and economic benefits to the island. In fact, because of the OBA's brainchild, Bermuda continues to host Sail GP 5 years later. It is because of this solid foundation laid by the One Bermuda Alliance during its years as government that the Bermuda tourism sector is afloat today. Mr. Speaker, Bermuda tourism cannot thrive without adequate airline carriers. Therefore, the tourism redevelopment plan must also include increasing our airlift and getting Bermuda's airline carriers and partners sorted out. The government knows that the loss of our Boston route deeply affected our core eastern seaboard markets and those who rely on the direct flight for overseas medical treatment. Other air links to experience drastically reduced service includes New York, Miami, and Toronto, which for months have been a hit or miss as flights are concerned. When it comes to the development of an airline strategy, all stakeholders should be involved. That should include the Airport Authority, the Bermuda Tourism Authority, the Bermuda Airlines Consultants, Skyport, Bermuda Hotel Association, and the Ministry of Transportation. The stakeholder team should find a leader who will guide the initiative to ensure that Bermuda has dependable air services. This must continue They must continue to court and build positive relationships with the airline network planners. If we are going to increase concessions for hotels, it must correspond with investments in our airline strategy. They should also ensure that Bermuda has a highly visible presence in the famous Route World conferences, where Bermudians can reintroduce the strength of their relationship with existing carriers that currently service Bermuda, and extend a welcoming hand to potentially new carriers who want to extend their footprint and network. Mr. Speaker, in 2022, the opposition asserts that the BTA is on the correct path by focusing on sports tourism, super yachts, the UK market, and developing and launching a new branding campaign. Small business. Mr. Speaker, throughout the past 24 months, a number of small businesses have been absolutely decimated. Local businesses which have been around for decades were forced to close or dramatically downsize. Many of the surviving businesses have had to reconfigure their business model. It appears that the island is systemically shutting down. What is the government doing to remedy this? Mr. Speaker, the opposition passionately believes that businesses must be allowed the freedom to grow, and that government must support, not kill their aspirations. We recommend that for the time being, corporate taxes must be kept at a minimum. This government must do all it can to encourage entrepreneurs and silent investors to invest in small businesses to increase business productivity. With respect to customs duties, we recommend implementing a tax deferral scheme for between 1 to 3 months to enable retailers to pay their customs duties after the products are sold and not at the time the products are imported. In addition, there must be truly equity when it comes to Bermuda's immigration policies. These policies must be just as user-friendly to local small businesses as they are to our international business sector and partners. Mr. Speaker, from Sumter to St. George's, the stories are the same. Small businesses lament that they must give business away because they cannot get local employees to service their clients. We've heard the repeated refrain, "We want to hire Bermudians, but they do not stay." The sentiment is prevalent within landscaping, restaurants, farming, and the grocery sectors. In fact, one small businessman told me that he is trying to get one expat worker for his workforce of 15 Bermudian employees, but the application continues to be rejected, while a chain of convenience stores have all expatriate workers. Where is the equity? Mr. Speaker, the other challenge for small business is securing financing from local banks. These small business entrepreneurs feel that they are unacceptable or unwelcome when they go to the banks to ask for support. This must change, and the government has a role in making this change despite the support and guarantees provided by the Bermuda Economic Development Agency. To help our economy grow, this government must cut the bureaucratic red tape when dealing with government agencies for small businesses and other stakeholders. International business. As stated in last year's throne speech response regarding international business, the Fitch rating agency believed the tax advantage held by Bermuda insurers and reinsurers will eventually be reduced because of the recent G20 endorsement of a 15% global minimum tax. Thankfully, the Fitch agency said Bermuda's advantageous tax status for the reinsurance industry will be reduced at the margin with the expected passage of the recent multilateral agreement to establish a 15% global minimum tax rate under Pillar 2 of the OECD Inclusive Framework on Base Erosion and Profit Shifting. Fitch made it clear that Bermuda will continue to benefit from an established position in the global reinsurance markets with demonstrated underwriting expertise, a strong and efficient regulatory regime, Solvency II equivalency, and reciprocal area status in the US. For this reason alone, Bermuda must continue to support international business. We must continue to collaborate with them so that as their businesses flourish, our economy will flourish. In fact, we should work with the CEOs in the executive suites as they may be a source of innovative ideas and may be able to suggest policies that will help Bermuda flourish both economically and socially. Immigration and labor. Mr. Speaker, from an economic perspective, Bermuda will not improve without a larger and stronger workforce. Bermuda needs more job creators and more people paying taxes and consuming services. As you may or may not know, the Burt government has spent the people's money on a software system to manage the work permit processes, but we have yet to hear about its progress. Work permit approvals are still taking a considerable amount of time to process, and receiving documentation once permits have been approved is taking months. There are instances where people have arrived on the island without work permit documentation. As a result, they are hamstrung by their inability to settle here and do things like opening up bank accounts and renting properties, as work permits are often required. Bermuda must do better. Having new residents receiving approval for a work permit, then having to wait for months for the work permit documentation to be approved is embarrassing, especially for a country that wants to continue to attract residents to come and work and live on the island. This is costing Bermuda financially. Mr. Speaker, we in the opposition support the government's current efforts, including the Economic Investment Certificate and Residential Certificate Program. This government needs to address the tough questions, such as what should a transparent, equitable route to achieve full Bermuda status look like? There could be a cooperative cross-ministry initiative between the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Labor. Collaboratively, they must present mutual benefits for job seekers, corporations who are looking for economic incentives, and local resources. The government can achieve its immigration priorities, making this a win-win for all of the relevant stakeholders. On the issue of the Department of Labor, which is being established to ensure the workers' rights are protected and employers have certainty in the application of Bermuda's labor laws, we in the opposition reserve our judgment on that development and would like to ensure that women and gender affairs are covered. In addition, we would like to see what will be done to support the employment of people with disabilities. Mr. Speaker, it just makes sense that the government should make life easier for industry groups that are keeping the economy afloat. This means that as the insurance sector experiences a hard market, the government should increase speed to market by cutting red tape. In addition, they should further incentivize spending in Bermuda and on Bermudians with good corporate citizenship benefits, such as charitable giving connected with public policy outcomes and employment and training for Bermudians. The enforcement team of the Department of Immigration must also be empowered to bring cases to court quickly and efficiently. Those who contravene the trust we put in them as job creators must be publicly held accountable for their disregard of Bermuda. Education. The government should continue with the implementation of the educational reforms with the participation of our parents, teachers, and stakeholders. The Department of Education must ensure that our students have the required prerequisite skills to enable them to successfully transfer from parish schools to middle schools and to our senior signature schools. The current reforms in education must help every child fulfill their potential, raise standards, and improve the quality of schools and higher education. Mr. Speaker, the One Bermuda Alliance and the Bermuda First Group promoted an education authority for years. Recent reports from Bermuda First indicated that the reality of today's education underlines the need for the creation of an independent authority for public education to be responsible for the performance management of educators. It would also be responsible for researching and implementing a holistic public education system, be appropriately sized and structured, and develop a learning environment to facilitate optimal student success. In fact, the Minister of Education made a commitment to deliver on the Education Authority. This was a promise not kept. When will this government deliver on an education authority? Mr. Speaker, like most sciences, global education always evolves. Now more than ever, we need to review education through a different lens. We need to look at the destination of our students from a career perspective. Where are they headed? Instead of just looking at their academic qualifications. We must ensure that all subjects are equally weighted. Vocational subjects are just as important as academic subjects. In fact, educational snobbery and biases regarding the development of our young people through economic routes versus vocational routes have no merit. There must be equal opportunities and improved outcomes to help both students and teachers realize their full potential. More resources and capital should be directed towards professional development and training so that our teachers can be the best that they can be. We must elevate the status of our teachers in our school system. Mr. Speaker, a good teacher produces talented students. As stated last year, another significant issue which must be addressed is the publishing of results of all of our external and internal exams in all of our schools, and not just our private schools. This is vital because these exams hold everyone accountable. These results should be used to judge the performance of our students, our teachers, our principals, our schools, and our school system. Mr. Speaker, I now go into youth and sports. Conspicuous by its absence in the PLP throne speech, is there a commitment to youth and sports? Mr. Speaker, recently, Bermuda hosted the World Triathlon Championship Series, and Dame Flora Duffy, OBE, walked away with a convincing gold medal performance in the elite women's race. Thousands of Bermudians came out to support our Bermudian Flora and the other Bermudian athletes who participate on the international stage with other Olympic and World Championship medalists. Mr. Speaker, we wonder how many other future international young athletes there are. With proper training and the support of the Bermuda government, their families, and support teams, our young people can reach the pinnacle of success, whether it be in track and field, soccer, tennis, cricket, or equestrian sports. Mr. Speaker, if we invest earlier, we may be able to produce more athletes like Clyde Best, Clarence Hill, and Flora Duffy. The government of Bermuda must demonstrate more commitment to youth and sports. They should have had a more prominent role in the throne speech. The recent introduction of sports policy was followed by changing the minister, who spent an inordinate amount of time to develop this policy. What is going to happen next? We all know that the impact that sports can have on our young people. Sadly, sports was ignored in the PRP's throne speech. Families and children. Mr. Speaker, many families are in crisis, and we see evidence of this manifest in the form of abuse, health outcomes, violence, and several other ways. The Byrd administration must establish clearer pathways for families to get the support they need early before the problem elevates to crisis level. Early intervention is critical to provide support needed to address some of the issues they face. As part of the Department of Child and Family Services psychoeducation program, millions of dollars have been spent over the years to send Bermudian children to overseas treatment facilities with varying results. A report on the feasibility of establishing local treatment facilities should be commissioned by the government to determine the cost of establishing it and whether it would be more beneficial to the children to receive treatment locally in a familiar surrounding with supportive networks rather than being sent overseas. A comprehensive review of protocols surrounding children that are in the care of the Department of Child and Family Services should also be conducted. Exodus of families and young people. Mr. Speaker, other growing concerns are the challenges faced by our young people who fall between the ages of 20 and 35 years old. Candidly, they see no future opportunities in Bermuda for their passion-based careers or any entrepreneurial opportunities for that matter. They find it difficult to find jobs that they love doing and are prepared to sacrifice the stability of 9-to-5 jobs to follow their passion. Bermuda's young people want an environment that is progressive and more receptive to their lifestyles and career choices. In fact, they are remedying these dilemmas with one-way flights to the UK, the US, and to Canada to chart a new path. They see Bermuda as a place to make fast money, a place that will give them economic foundation, and eventually help them to leave and settle in other jurisdictions overseas. Mr. Speaker, again, the exodus of young human capital and brain drain was recently reaffirmed by Ms. Mackenzie Cole Tuckett, one of Bermuda's many shining stars, when she recently delivered a speech to the UK House of Commons. She indicated that one of the top significant issues in the government's national youth policy was the exodus and relocation of our young people. She went on to indicate that the primary reason for the flight is unemployment and the unemployment of degree holders. She indicated that these young people were struggling to feel at home post-university, and they felt that there was a lack of opportunity for them here in Bermuda. She also warned that the island suffered from a brain drain and a loss of qualified talent. Mr. Speaker, this government must also do more to develop and support the performing arts in Bermuda by promoting local artists and entrepreneurs. In addition, we should also have a National Performance Center and an Institute for the Arts. We in the opposition would like the government to continue to establish more tech fairs to expose our young people to the forefront in robotics, coding, and animation skills. Seniors. Mr. Speaker, in the 2020 throne speech, the Progressive Labour Party government promised a national senior strategy and a prevention plan for seniors' abuse, and it still has not formally materialized. Bermuda seniors have contributed to this country and paved the way for future generations. They should be valued. The One Bermuda Alliance takes the view that when it comes to seniors, the government should keep them healthy. There should be a recreational center dedicated for seniors' use and that promotes regular physical activity, community and social engagement. Soon to be vacated primary schools could be utilized for such a purpose. We also believe that we should help them get around. Transportation is a real issue for many seniors, given the unreliability and expenses of bus and other public transportation services, and disrespect that some seniors experience. There should be a free and subsidized minibus service or register of taxi drivers who can transport seniors to grocery stores, to attend doctor's appointments, to do banking and other errands. We would also protect them. There needs to be a higher standard and caliber of oversight for independent caregivers. As far as housing seniors, most seniors in Bermuda live solely from their pensions. For those who do not own their homes, a substantial portion of their funds are spent on rent. There should be affordable housing units specifically designed to accommodate seniors' needs. Finally, we should be giving tax relief for seniors' care and other personal care items to help them lower their overall costs. Mr. Speaker, we recommended changes to the National Social Insurance Reform, which will also impact our seniors. We acknowledge the government's intention to move forward with a sliding scale model, which will be similar to the UK model. We agree that contributions based on salary earned is reasonable. On the other hand, how will the benefits payments be determined and paid? The devil will be in the details. In light of this, the One Bermuda Alliance will reserve judgment on this proposal until all the details and infrastructure are defined. National health care. Mr. Speaker, Bermuda has the unenviable reputation of having the third highest rate of diabetes amongst OECD countries. 13% of our population are inflicted, and 50% of our residents have at least one of the following chronic diseases, such as diabetes, heart diseases, and kidney diseases. According to the Ministry of Health, 1 in 3 residents have high blood pressure and/or high cholesterol. In addition, $29 million is spent every year on dialysis, and demands for these services grow a minimum of 10% per year. On the matter of uninsured residents, approximately 12% of Bermuda's residents are uninsured, and 23% of our populations take the view that health insurance is unaffordable, and there are those who are underinsured. From a cost perspective, 11.6% of Bermuda's GDP is spent on health care, which is the third highest in the OECD. In addition, my research in the Ministry of Health also indicates that the health expenditures grew an astronomical 92% between 2006 and 2017. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Health must finalize Bermuda's health strategy. This strategy should address the promotion of healthy living, preventative care, and mental health. It should be patient-focused with individual patient ID numbers. It must utterly understand patient needs and provide universal healthcare coverage. It should also harness healthcare technology for better efficiency and patient outcomes. In addition, KEMH must clearly define its operating model. Is it a for-profit hospital, or is it a non-for-profit community hospital which can make it more affordable? What model is being used? The government continues to inject money into Bermuda Hospital Board. These are unbudgeted funds, and this option of financing is unsustainable. When it comes to national health, the One Bermuda Alliance recommends that the Progressive Labor Party should develop a national health care plan to ensure that every Bermudian has health insurance coverage. It must be evidence-based and managed by independent professionals. We also believe that we must ensure that each patient has a unique patient identifier. This will ensure that everyone has coverage, reduce duplication of service, and drive down the cost of health care for all. It will assist in services being streamlined and produce a true number of those that are uninsured or underinsured to develop solutions to reduce its figure. We also believe we should create a national fitness program to encourage well-being, sound health, exercise, good personal diet from primary school throughout life. We also believe that work with healthcare providers to ensure that the healthcare reform results in improved population health and more affordable health care. We would legislate that insurance plans that offer mental health coverage must cover it in the same way as medical coverage and not discriminate or offer less coverage for mental health services. We would provide additional assistance to those who, for whatever reason, simply cannot afford insurance. We would explore possibilities of allowing dependent elderly parents to be covered on their children's health insurance plan. The focus should be on the provision of patient-centric services, giving the patient more options to be in control of their own health choices, which are not defined by the practice of socialized medicine. In the meantime, the excessive cost of healthcare in Bermuda and the fragile and worsening financial position of our only hospital and the hospital board must be addressed. Government cannot continue to inject unbudgeted capital. This model is irresponsible and unsustainable. Mr. Speaker, Bermuda has a small population of people who sleep and beg on the streets. A simple stroll through town shows evidence that the numbers are increasing. We must focus on homelessness, untreated mental health, and related behavioral problems. Bermuda needs a central facility where people with drug and mental health issues can get to without the need for transportation, as getting to Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institute is not on a bus route and is challenging for some people to get to. Mr. Speaker, the One Bermuda Alliance would ensure the police are visible in Hamilton and that they have specialist mental health training to appropriately deal with people with mental health issues and other crises, i.e. domestic violence. Untreated and unaddressed mental and related behavioral issues add financial, human, and other resource burdens on the hospital, police force, courts, prisons. It does nothing to help the individuals, potentially puts the public at risk, and is not good for tourism experiences. Crime against tourists will be more than of an issue if not addressed. It is a situation that should not be ignored. Domestic abuse. Mr. Speaker, the Progressive Labor Party must proactively address domestic abuse. This is a complex matter, and there is no one thing that can be implemented to prevent it. However, we believe that an action plan should be created. It must be collaborative, with a focus on education, training, safety, and the security of victims of abuse, and interventions for abusers. Bermuda should also have a specialist domestic violence court to function like the mental health court, which would specifically address the needs of both the victims and the abusers. National security. Mr. Speaker, the lack of mention and attention to national security in the throne speech is a worrying sign. While the services within the Ministry of National Security served the island well through the COVID pandemic, perhaps this government has forgotten the challenges that they face, such as manpower and working conditions in the Department of Corrections manpower area. Perhaps it's the lowest level in years currently, and budget constraints within the police force or the police service. Mr. Speaker, while significant funding is tied up in violent crime and corruption, investigations in community policing is being scaled back. Mr. Speaker, one of the fundamental responsibilities of any government is the security of its citizens and ensuring a safe environment in which all can thrive. This begins by valuing all of our uniformed personnel instead of disrespecting them, by providing the best possible conditions of service and physical environment. It also requires vigorously confronting the causes of crime, as well as being tough on the perpetrators of crime itself. Mr. Speaker, the Progressive Labor Party government has been defunding the police by slashing their budget. They have also not provided our firefighters with the necessary equipment and have allowed conditions at the prisons to fester. The One Bermuda Alliance believes in law and order, and we value the demanding work of our uniformed services men and women. Their performance during COVID crisis underscored their commitment and diligence, and we all owe them our gratitude for their service. They worked above and beyond anything we could have asked for. Therefore, the One Bermuda Alliance recommends that the Progressive Labor Party fully invest in our uniformed service men and women by ensuring they do not lack the basic needs such as clothing and equipment, and equip them with modern technology to better ensure safety and crime prevention, including body cameras for police officers, updated fire equipment, and emergency ambulances. We will address the serious facilities deficiencies at Bermuda's prisons to ensure that prison officers work in a safe and healthy environment. We will ensure that our uniform services are fully staffed so that services are routinely provided with reduced reliance on overtime pay and the promotion of well-being for those who give service to our island. We would also provide clerical support to our uniformed services so that they are free to concentrate on their important core tasks and not be bogged down by non-clerical duties. Mr. Speaker, we would also provide on-call mental health and social work to support the police in responding to non-criminal calls to provide de-escalation or crisis assistance. The OBA believes that strong preventative and rehabilitation programs are important in maintaining safe communities, to provide ongoing support to victims' families, to support and guide at-risk youth, and to give offenders a second chance. Gang violence. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, there are being reoccurring spates of violence in Bermuda. The sad reality is that our community appears to have become numb to this antisocial behavior and have accepted it as a new way of life. Alarmingly, There have been 8 murders this year, with many more shooting incidents, violent attacks, and brawls. This is unacceptable and says that gang violence is alive and well, and that we have a real social problem which needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency. As for the scale of the gang challenge in Bermuda, the Minister of Security indicated at a recent gang symposium in October that the island is facing a crisis in gang violence, and candid discussions must be held with stakeholders to resolve the problem. He stated, and I quote, "It poses a grave threat to our young people, our peace of mind, our schools, our societal expectations of normal behavior, and the very fabric of Bermuda's culture." He says, "I find it utterly unconscionable that around 1,000 people are actively involved in gangs, and they can cause this much disruption and devastation to the population of just over 60,000 people on our 21 square miles and 4-mile wide island," end of quote. Mr. Speaker, as a country, we must also stop living and believing that we live in a dreamland. When it comes to youth and gang violence, we must stop saying that this is not who we are, and this is not who we want to become. Gang violence reflects our society and how society has managed its young people. We all must take ownership of this problem. We all have a role to play in addressing this problem. Mr. Speaker, the Premier and the Progressive Labour Party government has once again placed independence on the parliamentary agenda. They have sanctioned and produced a report entitled "Assessment of Self-Governance Sufficiency in Conformity with International Recognized Standards." Collectively, we ask why. Why now, when Bermudian families are trying to figure out how they're going to eat and pay bills and are concerned about the future? Why now, when our young people are moving to the United Kingdom in droves? Why now, as we speak, increasingly more of our Bermudian residents are securing British passports? Why now, when our young people are getting home fees when attending UK universities and colleges? To raise independence now is yet another stark reminder that Premier Burt and his government has utterly lost touch with the people. Transportation. Mr. Speaker, the current state of Bermuda's roads is a direct reflection of the state of our economy. If anyone wishes to understand the recession, notice the inability of the Progressive Labour Party to afford repairs and improvements to our roadways. Clearly, the PLP government does not have the funding nor desires to address the severity of our hazardous roads, which its citizens are subject to on a daily basis, not to mention our tourists. Care and management of our roadways is dependent on the collaboration of national stakeholders, including Works and Engineering, Transport Control, Bermuda Police Services, the Bermuda Road Safety Council, internet providers, and the utilities. Very little effective activity has taken place to improve overgrowth, potholes, speeding, and poorly repaired road pavings, and the regretful road traffic accidents and fatalities. Taxis. The taxi industry is an iconic feature of Bermuda's tourism products, but they are fighting for their existence as transport seeks to consolidate industry into one public service. Taxi owners should not have to compete with other public service vehicles which offers a very different customer experience. Making changes without taking the welfare of our taxi owners and their cultural significance too hard is in direct contradiction to delivering the best Bermuda customer experience. Mr. Speaker, electric buses, mini cars, bikes, and scooters are a growing industry. And when it comes to growing pains, residents are already reporting irresponsible use of rentals, such as riding bikes on the sidewalks, not wearing helmets, and using handheld devices. Government must work quickly to put legislation in place for responsible use and safety of our users. Mr. Speaker, national debt. With Bermuda's national debt approaching $4 billion, we must build a vibrant economy where jobs are created with a focus on equity, diversity, free trade, and real opportunities for Bermuda. We must find investors to support small businesses and our local economy. We must buy Bermuda. To mitigate the rising cost challenges, the One Bermuda Alliance has called for the elimination of the sugar tax, a reduction in the foreign currency purchase tax for 1 year, an amendment to customs duties that will allow retailers to pay customs and import duties at the point of sale and not in advance. We would also consider the reduction of the cost of public transportation of 12.5% for 1 year. We support government's recent reduction in customs duties payable for essential foods and feminine hygiene products. We'd also invite the government to eliminate all pink taxes, which also include contraceptive products, and place a moratorium on new hires in the civil service. We must encourage the government to review our tax system for adequacy and economic sustainability. Mr. Speaker, global warming. On the matter of global warming and climate change, when is the government going to draft and develop a national global warming adaptation plan for Bermuda? What strategies are we going to share with the people of Bermuda to mitigate climate risks, which are threatening our families, our homes, our environment? Look at the frequency and intensity of our hurricanes, the ongoing calving of our coastal cliffs, the rise in temperatures in the summer, and the threat to our mangroves. When it comes to reducing Bermuda's carbon footprint, the government should aim for more electric and hybrid vehicles for Bermuda's roads. Considering this, it is unconscionable that the current transportation minister is currently entertaining the thought of reintroducing customs duties on electric vehicles. If the Burt administration is serious about lessening global warming, they must not move forward with the proposed taxation on electric vehicles. They must reinforce the island's green agenda and provide the appropriate incentives and tools to make it happen. Conclusion. Mr. Speaker, while the throne speech opened by stating that Bermuda has been tested, we in the opposition believe that Bermuda has been tested and the government has failed the test miserably. They have not adequately supported Bermuda and her people. Leaders in the Burt government are more concerned about political control versus principled leadership. They have not and will not set the country up for success. The government must remain focused on building Bermuda's social support programs and initiatives. They must also continue to support the growth of Bermuda's domestic economy and that of our international business industry. This PLP government must deliver the Bermuda we all want, the Bermuda we all deserve. We deserve a Bermuda where we have equitable access to quality education and training, a Bermuda where we have efficient and reliable infrastructure and services, a Bermuda where we have access to timely and affordable health care, a Bermuda where our unique environmental and cultural assets are preserved, a Bermuda where small businesses entrepreneurial and creative talents thrive. A Bermuda where we are safe and secure. A Bermuda where people consider us the destination of choice. A Bermuda where all of our people are positive contributors to our society and love, nurture, protect, and support each other. Let us all ensure that the Progressive Labor Party does less talking and more positive action. They must empower our people, secure their peace, provide them with opportunities, and invest in their prosperity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, the